Why doesn't your narcissistic adult child care that he or she is hurting you? Why doesn't that child, who is your child, flesh of your flesh, right? That child who you raised to be in loving relationships, why does that child not care that you are in pain and care that you're wounded and care that the things that that child has done are destroying you in some ways and that you are in pain? Because the essence of narcissism is a lack of empathy. And when somebody has a lack of empathy, it means that they can't care, don't feel, and don't think about what you are going through. And if they do, they will rationalize and justify what they are doing, that it's necessary or the right thing or what they want to do. They're not going to be able to get out of themselves and say, put myself in my mom or dad's shoes, or both of them, and see how they are being affected. On top of that, they're not able to put themselves into their children's shoes to see how their children are affected. If your adult child has cut off a relationship or cuts the relationship off and then lets it go back on, not thinking about how damaging that is to their children, to your grandchildren, which is probably breaking your heart and keeping you from sleeping at night. So a lack of empathy means that the person does not stop to think about what it feels like to be the other person. Just doesn't. And that could come from learning, from their own self-centeredness, from their belief that they don't have to a personality issue. Maybe if they've either are narcissistic personality disordered in all their relationships, not just the one with you, or it can come from just a lot of different things, maybe just a belief that they don't have to, or that they're the only ones that matter. After all, narcissism is self-love, right? Self-focus, self-consumption, being consumed by self and not thinking about other people. So lack of empathy is hard to understand, because if you impute to that person who you are and the characteristics that you have empathy. You even have empathy for the adult child and what that child is going through, trying to understand, like, well, what is that child feeling when I've done this or I've done that? Or maybe you're trying to rationalize things that happened in that child's childhood that were traumatic, that might have led to this child being this way. So you're trying to understand, you're trying to explain it, and you're giving that kid maybe even the benefit of the doubt for a long time. It takes a long time to get to the point where you're just like, this kid is just plain narcissistic and is capable of being very hurtful and very mean. It takes a while to get there because that's not natural. We want to explain, we want to understand. So not having empathy for you, not having empathy for the child. You can't force somebody to have empathy. You can't force somebody to understand what you're going through. You cannot force your child to recognize the pain. You cannot force your child to admit that your child is doing things that hurt you, doing things that are wrong, doing things that are punitive, doing things that aren't healthy for their own children. You're not going to be able to force that person. You can't. So what do? You have to let go of wanting your adult child to recognize what it is that you are experiencing before you validate the pain that you're experiencing. And what do I mean by that? A lot of times in difficult relationships, what we do is we focus on the other person having to see our pain before we see our pain, before we self-validate and saying, this is hurtful, this is damaging, this isn't good for me. We focus all our efforts on getting the other person that is hurting us to admit it. You can't let go of that, and you do it. You recognize, what are you going through? What are you experiencing? What kind of support do you need? What kind of help do you need? What kind of things do you need to put in your life that give you joy and happiness? What changes do you need to make to take care of yourself? You cannot expect and wait for this other person, even though it's your child, to see the pain. You have to take care of yourself. Your life is worth living. Your life is worth living, even if you don't have a good relationship or any relationship with this adult child. You have things to give, you have things to offer, you have the capacity to enjoy and to love and to have happiness and pleasure in other ways, to make something good out of your life. Maybe it will be helping other people who are going through similar things. I don't know. But you have to give yourself the validity of being able to say, this is valid pain for me. You've got to be able to self-validate, I'm in pain. Now, maybe that will be going to a therapist and having a therapist help you recognize the pain, recognize the damage. Maybe it will be getting validation from a friend or from other people that have gone through the same thing, or maybe by reading things. But you're in pain. You don't need your adult child to have to admit or validate your pain before you can say, this is really hard. This is really hurtful. This is something I need support with. This is something I need help with. I need to learn, maybe you need to learn a new way to live. Maybe you need to stop some of the dysfunctional patterns that you had in the past with this adult child. Maybe they were from when you were raising the child, and now when the child's an adult and this has all happened, you realize it. So maybe you got to work on changing yourself, fixing yourself. Not that you're responsible for all that, I'm not saying that, but to figure out how you could move forward with hope and healing and make a good life for yourself. So don't wait. Don't wait for a narcissistic person who is incapable of feeling empathy to validate your pain. You do it. Thank you for watching this video on Change My Relationship.